glad to see everybody being able to meet it today, and that you're accommodating of the setup, because we're going to be working in pairs today, and I've got you set up so that it forces you to work in pairs today. And Mark has been kind enough to volunteer to be a scribe for us, because we're going to be doing a lot of scribing. If you look around the wall, you'll see some of the stuff that should be familiar to you. The Roma accountability cycle, which is you do your assessment first, then you do your planning, you implement what you plan, you look at the achievement of results, you collect the data on that, and then you evaluate your results, and then that rolls back into reviewing the whole process again. And if you you should have a copy of that cycle from one of the previous handouts. I gave you a packet of information, and it includes a different handout of the Roma goals, and it looks like this. Is in the packet that's under the agenda, and it'll have the 6 national goals on it. It has community action outcomes, and it has the different levels of outcomes. And does anybody remember there's 3 ways that we look at outcomes and results? Does anyone remember them?
Family, agency, community?
Yeah, family, agency, and community. Good. Good. When you're back there at that table, visit Mr. Trees.
I will.
And also, this is just something that puts it all on one page that helps you to understand it. The other thing that is up on the wall is the logic model. And because the angle in this room is a little hard to make it to see, you have your own personal little copy. So when I put up a notepad, when we get to the section where we're populating the logic model, you can do it on your own little sheet. And so right now, have you guys found it yet? One of the handouts?
Yes.
Okay, because we're going to add a couple things to it pretty soon. Okay, and on top of your stack of new handouts, you should see the agenda. And we stopped at community assessment where we're looking at customers, what they value and what they want. So it's not going to take a full hour for us to do that, but I want to leave enough time. And then we'll take a break, and then we'll do module 3, which is developing results-oriented plans. And then we'll stop and we will add module 4 to the meeting on the 17th, and maybe cut down some of the time on it so we stay within 3 hours, or maybe expand it a little bit so that we can still finish on the 12th. But anytime you need a break, just please feel free to, take one. And we do have people who are leaving early because of other commitments and stuff, and they're retiring anyway. So, but this is valuable knowledge. I mean, when you look at Roma and look at all the different ways you can include it in your life, because it's just better organizing, better management, and a way of accomplishing the things that you really want to get done, that you prioritize, are a change or a need in your own life, as well as applying it to programs, your program. I kind of link it to mediation, whereas when people come to those mediation workshops to be volunteer mediators, they find that they can take those skills back to their own children, their spouses, their families, troublesome cousins, everybody has one or two in the family, neighbors and community at work or whatever. It isn't just limited to doing cases in the courts. Well, Roma's the same way. It's not just limited to doing programs and community action agency. It's helpful in a lot of different arenas.
Debra,
Yes.
you might find this interesting that this concept has actually gone into other things too. Rotary International now has a thing they call Rotary Club Central, and it asks the club presidents to list their goals before they take office. And then this system through our website tracks those goals throughout the year. It kind of gives you where you're at.
Interesting,
So
interesting.
the same theory.
That's, and that's, you know, I think that what's really important is that we are held accountable for the results. And we're going to talk a little bit about the difference between what are results and what do they look like and how do you measure that. But in general, whatever organization you go to, particularly if people are giving you money, people they want you to be accountable. You know, if I'm investing in you, I want to know not what are you doing with the money, but how is the money changing the world? Whether it's on a family level, whether it's on a community level, or whether it's an agency level. You're investing in social change, not number counting, you know. It's like if you served 100 meals, well, of those 100 meals, how many people didn't go hungry that day? You know, that's what you're looking at. You're taking a bite out of, the coin of phrase, a bite out of hunger. But, you know, the meals were the strategy in order to be able to do that. And so we're going to learn and work on some of the differences today. You work on your individual programs and stuff. So if you will turn to page, I believe it's 25. Just want to do some key stuff before we start, because you want to remember it. For mission statements, that's that first big communique about what your agency is all about. And there were 4 things that each mission statement should have in it. Does anybody remember or want to take a chance at guessing? If you read through someone's mission statement, there should be 4 elements you should be able to find. And you can look through your notes.
Who's your customer? Right?
That's part of it, the population.
What does the customer value? What are your results?
Yeah, what are your results?
And what is our plan?
Okay, almost.
Services.
Services,
Relationships.
what are you gonna do in relationships?
Ah,
And so, one of the things that we found that was really interesting, by legislation, CSBG legislation, we are legislated to address poverty in our community. And our target population, the population that we're serving, should be poverty, people in poverty. But that was one statement that our commission voted not to include in the mission statement. They're globally opening it to anyone in Riverside County who has need of the service. But by legislation, we should have the word poverty at least somewhere within our mission statement. So that'll be something to address with the board at the retreat when they review the strategic plan. So,
Do you think they probably just want to be politically correct?
yeah, that's exactly what it was. They didn't want to offend anyone, and they wanted to be politically correct. And by doing so, it detracts from the uniqueness of who we are as an agency. We're an anti-poverty agency, and we don't mention that in our mission statement.
Plus it was the end of a long evening when they finally voted on this.
Yeah,
Not the best circumstances.
Yeah, well, they were actually, did it at the, no, it was one of the October meetings, but I digress. Anyway, it's something that needs to be reviewed. Your mission statement identifies who you are, and it should be revealed through everything you do from this point forward. So when we talk about needs assessment, when we talk about outcomes and outputs, when we talk about results, when we talk about strategies, everything is about that needs assessment. And if you look at the mission statement, if you look at the logic model down at the bottom, because it's foundational, you should put an M or write mission statement, because everything hangs on the mission statement. Everything should be about facilitating the mission statement. So in order for us to look at developing this even more, we need to know what our customers value, who are they, and what do they value. And so if you turn to page 25, and also in your handouts, you should have a list of the Drucker questions. It should say the self-assessment workbook, Peter Drucker. Okay, so we've already done one, what is our mission? Question 2 is, someone want to read question 2 and 3 for me?
Who is our customer?
Okay,
And what does the customer value?
okay. Those are the 2 critical things that we need to know in order to move forward with building outcomes and strategies. And the Drucker material really provides a different way of looking at identifying needs. And it ties it back to who your customers are. So who would some of your customers be?
Well, energy,
Okay, so those are those customers. Who else could be your customers?
The funding source.
The funding source partners? How about other potential customers?
Our partners?
Yeah, our partners, yeah, Godwin mentioned that.
Yeah, the for us, subcontractors.
Okay, yeah.
Then
people-
utility companies, so we deal with them.
Okay, okay. So on an admin level, where would you see our partners be?
Those that provide locations and assistance.
The board of supervisors.
Yeah, the Board of Supervisors, definitely since we're county. What about the ACO? Aren't they one of our customers? We need to keep them and purchasing happy in order for them to keep us happy and all. Definitely, most definitely about that. And our sister departments, you know, so anyone that has a vested interest in the agency is a customer. And what you want to look at is, you know, who are they in relationship to the agency and what is it that they value? So, I'm sorry, did I? Okay, so on page 25, if I could get someone to read the 3rd paragraph down for me, after it says, Drucker's question 2 is who are our customers? Chocolate.
Drucker identifies, this is the magic word. Drucker identifies 2 types of customers. The primary customers who are the recipients of services and whose lives will be impacted by the direct participation. The supporting customers who may be funders, policymakers, family members, partners, and others who have input into services. Both of these customers must be assessed. Drucker also cautions, customers are never static. The organization that is devoted to results will adapt and change as they do.
Okay, thank you. Okay, yeah, it is, and we need to pay attention to who those customers are, because it is ever changing, particularly with the demographic of Riverside County. You know, we have an influx of a lot of people coming into the community, and, you know, keep in mind that low-income people are not our sole focus. We've got middle-income people that are right on the cusp, that are in need, so we need to be able to refer them to places if they're not eligible. And then we also have higher income people who want to help support and volunteer. You know, Project Bliss is a good example of that, with the allies who were community volunteers who would encircle a working poor family, but the allies themselves ideally are not working poor themselves. They're at a higher economic level so that they can demonstrate and role model what it looks like to be self-sufficient and all. So, you know, it isn't just low-income people that we're focusing on. One of the things that Drucker says or uses about customers, sometimes he calls them help seekers, people who are looking for help from our different agency. But the word customer is included in the 1993 GIPRA. You guys remember when we talked about the history about GIPRA, that this is one of the mandating legislation as to the implementation and the use of Roma. You know, they identify people who come for service as customers. And when you use the term customer, it takes you to a whole different level of thinking about people. So just, you know, by a show of hands, how many people refer to the people they're engaged with in their program as customers? Okay, what about participants? Okay, and clients? Okay, any other terms that I've missed? I can't think of any others. I think we pretty much have caught them all. Okay, so anyway, it's not important that we agree that the term customer is the term used, though it is more efficient for an agency to adopt a single term that's across the board with all programs. It makes it a little easier to track. But what is important is that we identify that each one of our customers has a different need and has a different value. So could I get someone to read Drucker question number 3 in the paragraph below it?
Sure, I will.
Okay.
What does the customer value? The question, what do customers value? What satisfies their needs, wants, and aspirations, is so complicated that it can only be answered by the customers themselves. Nonprofit leaders tend to be convinced they are doing the right things and are so committed to their cause that they come to see the institution as an end in itself, rather than asking, does it deliver value to our customers?
Yes. I have a story that I usually tell about, and you guys may have heard this before, where a library wanted to start a literacy program, after-hours literacy program in this community. They had determined that was the need of the community. And so they publicized it, they, you know, were going to have a kickoff for it and everything like that, and nobody showed up. And so when they examined why nobody showed up, they found that the community was largely Spanish speaking, and they sent everything out in English. So there was nothing for the community to be able to read or understand. The library wasn't exactly on a very close bus line, and people had trouble getting to the library. And after hours, they had little kids, and they had childcare needs. So, how did they know about it? How could they get to it? And how did you deal with the kids who didn't want to come to the literacy program? They didn't, and that wasn't what they identified as what they needed. It wasn't literacy, programs. It was mostly job placement, job development, job help. Literacy plays a role in that, but that was not the basic need that the customers in the community needed. The library went to everybody but the customers when they decided to go after this grant for this big literacy program, and then they couldn't get customers because the program wasn't planned or geared towards them. So you have to ask your number one customer, your number one stakeholder, what is it that they need and what is it they value? And it's important to ask your secondary customers, that's your primary, your secondary customers, because they're the ones that are helping to support, and they're not going to support something they don't value. Dalton?
Yeah, I have an example like that too. There was a need for clean water in some part of Africa. And we have these philanthropists, some people coming in and say, we want to provide drinking water for them by put a borehole for them so they can start getting water from it. But what they did was they gave them a borehole machine, the pump that uses the pump. Then instead of one that they pump themselves.
Oh.
So when they put the electrical pump in there, it breaks, nobody know how to fix it. So they couldn't get any water. Then they finally find out that if they had given them the manual where they can pump the water themselves, that's what they know, and that would have worked better for the village.
Yeah.
So they ended up not having any water.
So in your study, you have to understand the community.
Oh, yes,
You
know
do,
what they
you
want.
do.
Before
That is so critical.
you have to put yourself in their shoes.
And so many agencies that are out to help community make the assumption that they know what their customers need. It's like Community Action Agency, we know what those poor people need. They need education, they need jobs, they need safe homes, they need to get out there and be working, and stuff. And when you look at what they need and what they value, it may come up to be something totally different, from what we're thinking. And that's where you really have to be protective of your customers when you're going back to like your boards and stuff like that, because they have assumptions. An elected official who don't believe there's poor people in their areas, they have assumptions about what these people or those people should be doing, should be valuing, or should be needing. So, when we look at identifying who these customers are, we collect data on them. And so if you'll turn to page 26 about the data, there are two types of data. Okay, I'm going to throw this out there because I know this is an educated group of people. You guys are all degreed and everything like that. So, what is qualitative data? Anyone got a
Real thing?
Reliable data.
Okay, well, all data needs to be real and needs to be reliable, but you have qualitative and you have quantitative.
Quantitative is the one that you account for, it has to be something quantitative, something that you, like, has to deal with numbers, okay? The qualitative.
Okay, yeah, you guys are good tag teaming. Okay, they explain it as qualitative has an L in it, and that stands for letters. Quantitative has an N in it, and that stands for number.
Yeah.
So qualitative is narrative type of information you can collect about people. What are some of the types of narratives that you can collect?
Success stories.
Like 50% of the population is in poverty?
Okay, quantitative. That's one. Think about your customers. As a matter of fact, let's do this to help you guys out. In the blank that says, who would you ask, how would you ask them? For qualitative, you're looking at, you primarily want to find the story behind the numbers is basically what you're looking for. That's what
Surveys,
qualitative is.
actually.
Okay, so take a minute and write down, who would you ask and how would you ask them? Who would you ask?
For your program? Is that one?
For your program or just in general?
That's right. That would be
We're working together.
Okay.
And how would you ask them? Survey?
And then when you've got a few ideas down there, think about quantitative. How do you collect numbers? These are the statisticals. You guys should be familiar with that because we ask you for them every month.
Yeah.
PPRs.
Reports.
Reports.
Statistical reports.
PPRs.
Mhm. Mhm.
That's wonderful.
But where are you getting this data from?
Where we get,
Those are the results of each program.
Okay, let's think inside our heads.
I can't.
those
Okay,
emails.
just whisper in Lenita's ear. You're giving your answers away. Look at all that chocolate you're losing.
I'll take it.
I'm not
Okay. So anyone want to share their qualitative answer? Okay.
Okay. Oh, Mark. Yeah.
No, we'll go with Lita. Mark's had a...
Okay. So, community,
Okay.
because we're serving the community.
Okay.
The customers, obviously.
Okay.
Our partners, our, the stakeholders who are the commissioners, members of the
Okay.
board. And those have different voices in different levels. And the community, to get information from the community, from the customers, we're gonna have to do a survey. The
Okay.
survey will give us the information of what they need.
Okay.
So that's a narrative. Okay, it's both. The survey is both narrative and quantitative. And then partners obviously, they're involved in the community, so we actually have meetings with them and they'll give us the information. So
okay.
that's a narrative.
Okay.
And from the partners, we have a narrative and a quantitative as well. The commissioners, that's the you know, and commission and funding sources also. The funding source will have another type of voice and another level. So that will be quantitative and qualitative also as well. And how do we do it? Like I said, we do surveys, we do meetings, we do statistical reports, we do research.
Okay. Okay,
Okay?
that's good.
Outreach
That's good.
to the-
Yeah, yeah, anything that is number related, statistical related, is like a standardized way of collecting information is quantitative. And so things like, the statistical reports or database where you track information, workshop evaluations where you do a ranking, is, you know how they do 1 to 5, you know, least to most, that's called a Likert scale. And you take the average of that or the mean of that, the most frequently answered, frequently used answer, and you determine statistically, you know, what the rating is for that particular thing, whether it's least to most. Things that tell a story that is very subjective, interviews, case management notes, surveys. Like you say, a survey can be a mixed, what they'll call a mixed method, qualitative and quantitative, where they'll have, you know, like gender, age, you know, health issues, things that you can quantify. And then they'll say, tell me what was your most successful way of getting food, having enough food for the month. And they write out a little story, a little narrative. That's your qualitative. So you get both sides. It's very rich. The number side is used, the quantitative side is used a lot with research to validate that there is a need, to validate that there is a change, to validate that there are statistically significant numbers that proves your case. The qualitative tells you about where that need comes from. You know, it is the thing that puts you in the position to analyze what strategies may work best with this group of people, because you know what motivates them. You know what they value. You know what their heart is saying and where their hurts are keeping them back, the challenges. That comes from qualitative. So you have to have both, you know, the story and the numbers working together to give you a complete picture. And so when we do our needs assessment and go out into community, you're asking both questions because you're looking at them from different perspectives. And that's why our surveys that we do and then the interviews that we do with families contain both types of questions in it. And so which one do you think people feel is most reliable?
People in general, what level?
Whoever may be reading a report or researchers. Quantitative. You know, people believe in numbers and all, which is why it's so important that we get the qualitative out there in community, because qualitative sells the heart.
Yeah.
You know, the story sells the heart, and so is very, very important.
And that's one of the things that community action agency are missing.
Mm-hmm.
You know, they're not able to sell their story.
Mm-hmm.
Remember when we went to Washington DC, we tried to tell them we're community action. They said, "Oh, you CSBGs." And no, they said we are
CDBG.
CDBG.
Mm-hmm.
You CDBG. We said, "No, not CDBG." They said, "No, you are CDBG." They
Yeah.
have no clue who we were. And some want to know, what do you do? You know?
Yeah, it's amazing how we get thought of other agencies. The other, I had someone recently who was offended when I said that we were the officially recognized nonprofit agency for the county, and they were offended. We help poor people? and I said, well, let me put it this way, as designated by the Board of Supervisors. Well, we're here, they recognize us, and then having to go back into going back another level, going back into the history of community action and how every county has them. If you're a community action agency, you are the official designated non-poverty agency in that jurisdiction, whether you're a private CAP or a public CAP. The legislation makes you so, but so few people know about our history. Even our own staff don't know about the history and the origins of community action enough to be able to support the story of it and the mission of it. And so that's why it's very critical that, you know, you go over the mission statement, you review the mission statement, because with that, you give a little history lesson. And we're, I mean, a proud institution, you know, from grassroots days of marching and being involved in community intervention and engagement during a lot of politically strifeful times in our history. Community action was at the forefront of it. And a lot of people in community action today don't know the richness of the history that they grew out of. We are civil activists, is what we are, and we go against the grain to support and take care of the people who are voiceless and do not have the resources and the wherewithal to be able to put their voices before the people who have the money, who can make a difference in their life, who can help make a change in their life. And that's why we're here. We're agents of change. So when we talk about that, we have people out in the community that provide resources. If you have needs and you identify the needs, if you have values and you identify the values, in order to address that, you have to have the resources in the community to be able to do that. So if you look on page 27, can someone read that first paragraph for me, please?
When establishing a community profile, it is not sufficient to assess only needs. An important aspect of community assessment is identifying the resources that are currently available or are being developed to address the problems, needs, or situations in the community.
Okay. So when you guys are working with your programs and stuff, what do you do? Where do you look? Who do you talk to? You know, what do you Google to find resources in the community? Take a couple minutes and that blank space just waiting for your pen. Now think about, okay, how do you know when new resources are being developed in the community?
You have to network. You have to be active. You have to have an active network.
Okay.
If you don't participate with that network, then of course you will
Yes.
not be
Yes.
informed of any programs available.
Okay. I got it.
Yeah, I can give you an example.
Okay.
I belong to an association, and one of the things we're trying to do is to provide education to people in the setting community.
Okay.
We call it Lassa fever. It's a type of fever that people get, you know, in certain parts of the world. So one of the things we want to do is, for us to be able to provide the education, we want to know what is already existing, who we can collaborate with, and how far they've gone in their process. So we went and interviewed the hospital that is in that community. We went and talked to the community, people within that community, elders, to find out what resources they have been using that we can enhance upon. So, you know, find out for the Ministry of Education, the Ministry of Health. We talked to different people in different ministries to see CDC, we call CDC, to see if they have some material that we can use to be able to provide, good resources for us to be able to use. So that's how we try to do that.
A good example. It's not only knowing what's not there, you need to know what's there,
Right.
Is what can you, take advantage of. And it could be that you're looking at resources that might be threatened. A good example of this is during the worst possible time for this to be happening, which was after the recession in 2009 or so, the major distributor of food, the food banks, stopped giving food out to the food banks. And we had a flux of food banks coming to us asking where can they get food. And they got dropped off the delivery list for a variety of reasons. And I think it was probably, remember, these places get their food from donations, whether it's cash or actual food or grocery stores, excess inventory and stuff like that. So when the top chain doesn't have the money to pass down or the goods to pass down into the community suffers. Well, one of the things that we started doing was starting to help the food pantries look for resources elsewhere. That we kind of heightened the technical assistance that we were spending specifically towards them to help them find other sources of food instead of, because they were threatened. And that was a valuable resource to our customers that we serve, that they still get this food. So when you look at in the community, if there's a resource that you normally use by your customer and they're getting ready to close the door, you have to look at how can you help them help your customer by keeping their door open, by partnering with them, by leveraging with them, by having them refer their customers to us or to 211 or something like that. But you just don't leave that resource hanging out there abandoned if they're a critical resource to helping address the needs of our customers. And so do you, if you hear through the grapevine, because customers are chatty, they like to share information about where to go to get something. We found that out when we had our game participants serve as surveyors. They were the best ones to know where the resources were in the county. And we made a directory up, based on all the knowledge and information that they had. And they like to share information, and they like to think that they're giving back by sharing. So when you have customers that are sharing information, what do you do with that information? Do you have customers sharing resource information with you? Okay.
I add it to our list.
Yeah. Well, you might want to start thinking about what's a resource and who is it valuable to. You may have, I know, like your customers are your taxpayers, but they have the ear of your tax preparers, all the time. And that's one way to assess what some of the general needs are out in the county if they're reporting that information back to see whether there's a service gap. There may be something that's needed in our county that we're unaware of, but your information link, your gossip link, so to speak, your gossip network with the taxpayers and stuff may be one way of bringing information back in. But it's not necessarily thought of as a resource and all, because you're there to prepare taxes, get them in, get them out. and stuff. But we share resources with them, like like IDA information and Bliss information.
Like for energy, for example, sometimes we share information with us, customers share information with us.
Mhm.
Say, for example, we have a list of other resources that they can go to. For example, somebody comes in, they've already applied for utility assistance. We say, oh, you can go to Red Cross, we give them an address, they say, I was there, they don't have money anymore. But we didn't know they don't have money anymore. But we keep trying to send them, send people to that same location. But they're out of funds for a long time.
Yeah.
But we don't know, so that's kind of information we get from them, then we update, so please don't send anybody to that
Yeah.
area. They don't have that.
Yeah, that's important. When we did the food directory, it was out of date the minute we got it back from the print services, that things had changed so much. But it did give some helpful information to people, and people were using it out in the community. So on page 28, we talk about analyzing the assessment data to identify agency priorities. And if you guys will pull out, it is a handwritten sheet that's from the Canavision board. We did something very similar to this when we were documenting the needs. Yes, thank you. Can you hold that up, Maya? Okay, that one. Okay, yeah, I have it up here. I know, oh, here's my second. And do you guys remember doing this when we were identifying needs by whether it was family, agency, or community? And then you see along the sign, every group that agreed with whether it was family, community, or agency, we put a little hash mark. And then the ones that had the greatest amount of hash marks, which was transportation to assess available services, and then affordable and accessible education, and then there was a whole bunch of them tied at number 1. But if we were to go through and look at the data from our needs assessment and start ranking them, like that's where the quantitative comes into play, and start ranking them, we would see what are the top priorities. That's what we did with our last needs assessment. And from staff meeting on Monday, and I passed this out like in our very first workshop, you have that summary of the community action plan, and you have the summary of the results from the needs assessment, and you can see what like the top 25, I think it is, in the ranking order. And that's because those are the numbers of people who responded as identifying that as a need for them. Now, those are all families, all individuals, but if we were to, like we're doing this year, going out to our partners, which is basically community, we will get a sense of what community feels that their needs are. What are their top priorities? So, when you look at analyzing information from your assessment activities to enable you to move towards the formulation of the plan, how do we do that? Do you guys, are any of you aware how us as an agency do that? We make Mark do it. Actually, Lily keys in all that data, and then she does reports. She queries and does reports and gives different answers or whatever. So it's Lily that really does all of this. But let's take a look at some of the questions that, when we get this information, this mostly largely quantitative. Now what we do with the qualitative is we take words. And how often do the same words repeat? You know, like need food, need housing, need medical care, need child care, need education. So how many times is the word education repeating, food repeating, housing repeating? That's how you kind of map out and analyze qualitative data. Why don't we just go around and we'll start with Richard, and at the bottom of page 28, just ask the question.
What are some of the root causes of the problem?
Okay, so that's one thing you consider, Kareem?
Why should we be interested in a problem?
Yeah. Why should we? And where would you look for to answer that? What's
In the qualitative.
what's foundational?
Mission statement.
The mission statement. It tells us why that's of interest to us. Claudia?
What can be done to address the issue?
Okay. And Olga?
Who should address this issue?
Okay. And Vida?
Do we have control or partial control over this issue?
Okay. Alita?
Do we have the capabilities to address this issue?
What programs can be addressed, what we can address the issues?
Okay.
What might we change in our agency that can help address the issue?
Okay. And then the last one, can we partner with someone to help address the issues? And so all of these questions we should be asking and keeping in mind when we collect the data from our needs assessment and take a look at it. We need to, is it germane to us? Is it something that's connected to what we've determined locally as a mission statement? Do we have the resources to address it, and why should we address it? Do we have the capacity to make a change in any of that area, or is it outside of our scope? A good example is, one of the top priorities that came out of the 2013 survey was the need for affordable, safe housing. We cannot build houses, but we can partner with places like Coachella Valley Housing Coalition. We can partner with Habitat. We can partner with the county with some of their CDBG funding, for housing. So where we are unable because of the way that community service block grant is defined and what's allowable cost and what's not allowable cost, we cannot do construction. But we can, partner like what we did with Habitat and ARA. We couldn't pay for any of the construction costs, but we could pay the salary of the construction coordinator. So the construction coordinator coordinated all of the construction, and we paid their salary, and then Habitat found other donors and other resources to actually cover the construction material and the buy, and they partnered with the city to get the houses and stuff like that. So those all meshed together, came up with a program. But if we looked at that problem and said, can we do this? How can we make a change? You might step back and say, this isn't feasible for us because we can't use our money for construction. But when you start looking at, okay, who out in the community can we start shaking hands with and putting our dollars together to make a community-wide project, then you have a different story. You're looking at it in a different way.
Yeah, I think that's one of the issues, problem I see. For example, we say employment. If employment is a high number, is one of the highest needs in the community, we say, what are some of the root causes of this problem? For high employment. So if I was someone, I said, okay, maybe they don't have good education, maybe there's no employment in the area. how can I solve that problem?
Yeah, and see, you're doing, the only thing that you didn't give an example of was agency, but you gave an example of family, how that family is impacted of lack of jobs is because, or maybe you're not ready for the jobs that are there. The community, they don't have the jobs, maybe they don't have the tax breaks, and, or employers are leaving the area or something like that. What could possibly be an agency outcome or an agency need for employment?
And I just need for employment.
Think along the line of service or
Yeah.
program.
Maybe like a job corps, education,
Okay,
whatever, like the one DPS has had,
mhm.
send people out there for a quick, or partner with mentor, the mentor.
Yeah, well, you can even stop just where you are, maybe the agency need around the employment issue is that they don't have a job development program. It's as simple as that. People don't have skills, community don't have places to go to work at, even if people have skills, and the agency doesn't have a job development program to train the people to have the skills to go to the job that the community could possibly have. Okay? So, on the next page, 29, there's several different ways that you can analyze assessment data, but part of it is that prioritization. That's where the numbers really come in and help. That's why we look at survey results and help to prioritize. There are 5 other different ways that you can look at data. But we'll go over them in another chapter. I think it's Module 5. We'll get a little more detail about that, but we don't need to know about that right now. So, I wanted to just go over some of the key points that we had to summarize just this section on community needs assessment, and then we're going to take a break, a 15-minute break. I was going to see, I see eyes at half-mast. Okay, so this module stresses the importance of connecting the community needs assessment processes to the establishment of agency outcomes and agency mission. They need to be linked. If for mission statement, the need has to be somewhere within that mission statement. And what we talk about is, in our own mission statement, is the lack of skills or knowledge in education, asset building, wealth building, community organizing, advocacy, and agency development are 4 goals. And that there's a lack of this within the community, individuals, community, and agency. And so when we go out to set outcomes, what is it that we're going to change on an individual level, on a community level, on an agency level? It needs to be linked back into the needs that are identified by our customers. What do they value? It can't be us laying down outcomes for them to say, oh, in order for you to be self-sufficient, you need to do this, and you need to change this. You need to have better saving habits. You need to have you need to, get your extra tax money and file for EITC every year, or, you need to get your kids working and bringing home a paycheck. or you need to do this, you need to do that, you need to do this. If the customer isn't interested in that, if the customer doesn't value that, if the customer doesn't see that as a need, you know, why are we writing outcomes to say we're going to make changes in those areas when we don't have our customers valuing it or saying that it's a need? So you really need to make sure you have that connectedness, that whatever we're striving to change in family, community, and agency, it's gotta be desired, it's gotta be valued by the people we're trying, or the community we're trying, or the agency we're trying to change. Okay, so the needs assessment process can be accomplished just by a structured effort of your staff at your community action agency. We are mandated to do one. It is not optional. Legislation requires that we do a needs assessment every 2 years along with the community action plan. I didn't mention this, but I will now. The people who respond to your data collection are called key informants. They are experts about their situation. They are experts about their needs, and we call them key informant, and that validates the information that they give to us. And the record questions that ask who are our customers and what do they value are essential for putting together this needs assessment. So it's grounded in good research to know that this is essential for the process. And we have different types of data, different ways of analyzing it, but it all goes back to, is the change that we're trying to make a part of our mission statement? And if it's not, you need to figure out what the disconnect is and all, because whatever plan that you write, that 2-year plan that we're required to write, the community action plan, has to address the needs that come out of the needs assessment. And if the mission statement isn't connected to that, you have to look at how did we devise the mission statement. Remember when we went back and we were looking, is it population, the service, the results, and the relationships? Are we disconnected somewhere in there that all of a sudden we're looking at addressing this problem because it's been traditional, or it's been expected of it, or us, or we've always done this, and there's no longer a need in that area? Remember when the YWCA changed their mission statement because there was no longer a need, where Crippled Children's Fund, Easter Seals, changed their mission because there was it was cured and all. And so you have to look at, if the need isn't there, why are we still promoting the outcome? Okay? So that finishes Module 2, and we're going to do Module 3, which is developing results-oriented plans. And why don't you guys come back in about 15 minutes, and we'll start it at 10 o'clock. Let's go ahead and turn to page 31, which is Module 3, the developing results-oriented plans. And if I could get someone to read part 1, which is identifying outcomes, if you could read what is all contained in that. Yes.
All right.
Okay.
Okay. Activity. Why plan? What comes first? What are our results? Assess what must be strengthened or abandoned. Results of outcomes. Types of outcomes. Examples of family outcomes. Examples of agency outcomes. Examples of community outcomes. Comparison of family, agency, and community outcomes for employment. Activity. What are our outcomes?
Thank you very much. Okay, and how about somebody reading number 2, identifying strategies?
Connecting need, outcomes, and strategies. Community action agencies are more than service providers. Activity. What are our strategies? Services and outputs. Activity. Outcomes and outputs. Proxy outcomes. Use of proxy outcomes.
Okay, thank you, Olga. So, before we go into the learning objective, I just want to talk a little bit about outcomes and identifying outcomes and why we have them in the plan. And, you know, as human beings, we're very intentional about the way we make decisions. And we generally, our mind likes to make plans. When you think about all the things that you do personally and professionally, you generally have a plan that is moving you towards your life agenda. You know, how are you going to do that? How are you going to prioritize things? How are you going to make changes in your life and to meet demands, et cetera, et cetera. And you're working from a general life script in order to do that. And it's no different when we look at agencies and what do agencies, you know, do in terms of meeting the needs that they identify out in community. Agencies are focused on results. Now, generally, with your own personal life plan, you want to see some good results. I know I do. Like, you know, I want to get that degree. I want to get that new set of cookware that I don't know how to use. or, you know, whatever, you know, your plans are, you're looking at what the results are going to be. And the ability of a community action agency or its clients to achieve the results and how well those are achieved, that's the performance, you know. It's not enough to just achieve the results, but how well did you do it? You know, was it just mediocre? Was it stellar? You know, for most of you, we've gone over the scale where you're in crisis, you're vulnerable, and the top range is thriving. So when you look at when you achieved increasing your mediation skills, your communication skills, were you still vulnerable at the end of that, or were you thriving? You're out teaching others, and you know you become a professor at, you know, UCR or something like that, teaching mediation or whatever. But it's the performance as well as what we're looking at, and it's the basis for accountability in community action and other federally funded organizations. People who give us money hold us accountable for the change that we make in the community and how well they know that change and how well they can see that change and identify with that change. That's what they're giving us the money for. And once an agency understands its mission and it has a clear and comprehensive view of the community in which it is serving, the next step is to create a plan that identifies the outcomes and which are the results that the agency is going to be about bringing. So if you turn to you're already on page 31, and let's take a look at that first learning objective. And can I get a volunteer to read bullet number 1?
Sure. Participants understand that a community action agency plans for outcomes.
Okay. Now the rest of the learning objectives are for part 2 of module 3, and we'll go over them when we get to part 2. The mission statement needs to be a guide. It's your roadmap. And the community assessment needs to be the basis for what the agency will be seeking to accomplish. So they work hand in hand. All of the needs should be popping up in the mission statement unless it's broad. So say for instance, in our mission statement, we talk about education, wealth building, community organizing. Our top 3 needs were employment, which goes along with education and wealth building. The second one was services, which basically is community organizing, as well as, well, they'll probably more fall under the community organizing. And the third one was housing, and that goes back to the asset building. So you don't change your mission statement every 2 years when the needs may adjust from your needs assessment. But if, say, for instance, one of the needs came up, help me out here, what, you know that in our mission statement, our goals are helping people through education, wealth building, advocacy, and community organizing. What would be a need that would pop up that wouldn't necessarily be addressed by one of those 4 goals? Food. Okay. Did we do the learning objective?
Yes, we did the first one.
Okay, thank you. See, get me on a rabbit trail and we never get back. Okay, so I'm ready. Okay. So the mission needs to be a guide, and the community assessment needs to be the basis for what the agency will be seeking to accomplish. So you want to keep those 2 things in mind. Always grounded in the mission and the needs assessment. This time, when we do it, it will be disseminated down to line staff, not just the managers. You know, everyone needs to know, you know, what the results of those needs assessment are, because everyone plays a role in facilitating the outcome and achieving the good result. And not only that, in documenting it. You know, we can't tell a story if we don't know about it, or it's not written down, or it's not captured. So turn to page 32, which is why plan. And think about why planning is a part of the Roma cycle. And I'm going to give you a couple minutes for you to just write down why you think you need to plan. Okay, so when you're done, we're going to write the answers on the flip charts. Are you done?
Yeah.
Yours may be the first ones. Okay. I saw Richard's hand. I saw Richard's hand.
I put that planning. Oh, Richard's going first.
I was first.
Oh, Richard.
And I didn't copy over here. So. He didn't copy over mine either. Okay. Things you could do for chocolate. Okay. You must have a starting point,
Okay,
and you must have a basis for action.
okay, great.
I put that planning helps stay on task and provides clarity.
Yes, yes, okay. Anybody else? Okay.
Provides a structured path for your team, your support staff, in regards to knowing who's going to take what role and what needs to be done and timeline.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, great. Anybody else? Okay.
Kind of have the same things. I mean, I had know the direction you're going, know what you want to achieve, and keep on the path, keep focused.
Okay, yes, especially that focus, everyone's coming up with that. Some of the stuff that they had in the book that I thought that you guys haven't suggested is the active planning provides an opportunity for an agency or community to step away from the day-to-day things that they do, day-to-day operation, and consider a vision of the future. So it takes you out of the chaos and allows you to have thinking space to be able to dream about that vision of the future when, you know, everything goes right. And then you come back to earth. Okay? And it helps you identify where you want to be in 3 to 5 years. You know, it's like they say if you don't write it down, it doesn't happen. You know, because you go off. We are frequently on rabbit trails in life. Or as one friend said to me, following the bouncing ball, whatever the new toy or bouncing object that comes by, it will distract us. And like you said, Claudia, focus is one of the things where we need to be. And then it allows you to consider in a strategic and comprehensive way how your agency will address its anti-poverty mission. Mm-hmm. You know, how are we going to address our anti-poverty mission? And it allows us to remain competitive as needs and community environments change. You know, we do a lot of niche funding, particularly when we're working in isolated, remote, rural areas. Sometimes we are the only service of our kind that's out there. Especially like with the Pool of Warren centers. You know, that's something that we are the only ones through this network of partnership that is doing a structured plan. I know the electric company used to do something or fund some agencies to be cool and cool centers, not necessarily warm centers, but in terms of a structured, a volunteer network that has over 51 sites county-wide that function as cool and warm center. That's something that's unique to community action. Okay, and then a well thought out plan will help to unify the agency and the staff from all programs and board members around a common vision and a common outcome goals. So when you look at it, is that when you plan, you unify. Because part of the planning involves getting the buy-in of your key stakeholders, and staff and board members are part of your key stakeholders. You know, you may not necessarily have consensus on everything, but you'll have a certain level of understanding that allows people to work together towards this common vision and towards the outcome. And then just, you know, a final comment on the planning. If you look at or go back to the 1998 CSBG reauthorization, we are legislated to have a constructed plan, which is the community action plan. So it isn't something that's just good management and a good best practice, it's the law. And so, the purpose of the assessment and the plan is to identify the improvements that we're making in the communities that we serve, or the results that we will achieve. So, you know, planning is important, and as a planner, you know, I can testify to how much stronger our services are because there is the crafted thought behind how do we get to where we're going, and does it work, and can we replicate it, can we sustain it? Is it making a change in someone's life? Is it making a change in the community? Or is it building the organization, the agency itself? it's not unusual for nonprofits or community-based organizations to first go after monies or usually grants, then they figure out what the program's all about, what they're supposed to do. And we kind of call that the tail chasing the dog, where you go after money and you end up working for the funder and not working for your own cause, you know, simply because you needed the money, and the program has nothing to do with your mission and stuff. So where do you start planning your activities? You know, when you're looking at something to do, and hopefully it's in connection with the mission, you know, when you start planning, you know, in your program, changes, growth, or whatever, where do you start?
The need.
Assessing the program, making an assessment.
Okay, assessing the program,
Say the need.
the needs, okay, so we go to the needs, and where do you go about, to find out about the needs? The customers, okay, okay.
Needs assessments.
The needs assessment, the results from the needs assessment.
Partner.
And- Okay, and partners, go to partners. Sometimes, and you'll have a form like a manager's meeting, where you might start your planning activity there, like discussing, you know, what's going on with your program, and then asking people to brainstorm, you know, what's a possible solution. I think we've done that a couple of times, and we've come up with some really good solution, or you do that with your staff. You know, you sit them down and say, okay, this is the problem we're having, let's think about it. You know, what do we need to do? So those are some of the other ways.
Especially the people that are dealing with people directly,
Yes, yes, yes,
reality.
yes. The people who have the direct service, the hands-on service. Take a look at that cartoon on page 33. Okay. This is not the organization that you want to be, where the one man goes, we got the grant. And then now we need to figure out what to do with it. Yeah, that's, I think as a public entity, we're a little more grounded in doing that, because we have to go through so many hoops just to be able to get money. And so we're really kind of not at the luxury or open to a lot of private sector grants, because we are a public entity. And a lot of funders are much more astute now, that they know about outcomes, and they know about strategic or comprehensive strategies that deliver on the outcomes. And so it isn't like, here, I'm gonna give you $300,000, you can do what you want with it. It's like the planning is already there in the proposal. But then, and again, there are some agencies that we've run up against. I think it was SoCal Gas was one of them. They gave us like $25,000 and never wanted to budget, never wanted to report, never got back to us when we were trying to figure out what to do with the money, or what could we do with the money, and we knew we had to use it, I think, for Project Lead or something like that, and it was just, I thought it was the gas company. This was back when Megan was still here. And we just, they wouldn't get back to us, they wouldn't communicate with us. And it was a chunk of change that we were just going like, okay, and they didn't even want to report.
Did we request that money, Debra?
Oh, yeah, we requested,
So we
they
wrote the
asked,
grant.
they asked us to apply for it.
Oh,
And we applied for it, and we got it. And you
Yeah, they sent
remember
all this-
that? You
Yeah, I
remember
do.
that
They sent
one?
all this mass thing, we got this money, take it.
Take it, yeah, I think what happened was that they had money at the end of the year that went unexpended, and they had to get rid of it. And then the people who were involved with it didn't want to have anything more to do with it. And literally, it was like, we never did get a hold of them, we spent the money. You know, but we never did get a hold of the funder. And so there are some funders out there that'll just give you money, and you gotta figure out what to do with it, how to record it, how to expend it and stuff like that, but that's not generally the norm. This isn't the way that you go about seeking funds. The best practice way is that you have identified a need that is tied to your mission statement. You've identified what you want to change about that need. That's the outcome. The outcome is to change the result. And then you support this with strategies that will bring about the change. And we're going to talk about some of the differences in these things. But it always should be a win-win situation with a funder. The funder's getting the social investment they want. You're getting money to support the social change you want to make. And that social investment should be the same as that social change. If it's not, if there's a disconnect, the funder isn't getting what they want from you, and you're working for the funder, and you're not getting what you want from the funder, ideally, which is to support and sustain your program. So, if you don't plan, what could possibly happen to your agency or organization?
You just keep the status quo. Or generally can be, right?
You go with
Yes, a go adrift, mission drift. Remember mission drift from when we talked the last time? There was mission drift and there was mission change. And mission change was when you analyzed and evaluated your agency and the needs, and you made a change because there was a change in those needs. And again, we talked about March of Dimes, I think it was the one where they eradicated polio. And so they had to do a mission change. Mission drift is where you just start going, the funding determines what your needs are. You know, that you got a pool of money that allowed you to hire on 2 staff, but now these 2 staff people are doing something, working on a project that's totally outside of your mission statement. And all of a sudden you start seeing the purpose of your agency going off in one direction, you know, because no one's guiding the boat, so to speak. Okay.
I was going to say, you also lose legitimacy with your funders and the community and your clients, even your staff, because if there's no structure guiding where you're going and how the money's going to be used and dispersed, then nothing's getting done.
Yes, absolutely, absolutely. And once you lose that, it's so hard and difficult to gain that back. Once you lose respect in the community, it is such a difficult thing to come back from. And so, but, yes.
Also, one thing too is if you don't plan, you don't know what you're measuring, so in the end, you're not sure if you were successful with whatever you were doing in the first place.
Yes, yes, absolutely. And one of the things that Drucker says, not so much about planning, but he says you should never subordinate your mission in order to get money. Sometimes you have to say no, no matter how pretty the opportunity looks, or how flush it may make you, or how it may sustain your program. The guiding decision should be, does this facilitate our mission? And otherwise, you're just working for somebody else and their goal and their vision. So, Drucker's, if you look in your handouts and you see the 5 questions, okay, it's all about results. Okay. So, what you want to look at is question number 4. And can I get someone to read question number 4 for me?
What are our results?
What are our results? Okay. And like Tamara says, if you don't plan, how do you know what your results are going to be? How do you know what you're tracking? You know, how do you know what you're going to evaluate if you don't plan? And Drucker really provides a context for defining results, documenting results, and identifying the extent to which the agency has achieved results. And that's one really nice thing about him. So if you turn to page 34, if I could get someone to read the second paragraph.
He says that we should look at both short-term accomplishments and long-term change.
Thanks, Claudia. And if I could get someone to read paragraph number 4.
According to Drucker in Business, you can debate whether profit is really an adequate measuring stick, but without it, there is no business in the long term. In the social sector, no such universal standard for success exists. Each organization must identify its customers and honestly judge whether lives are being changed.
Thank you. It's identifying, documenting, and using results is part of the overall management of any community action agency. And this process is consistent with good quality management in all sectors, whether it's government, private sector, or nonprofit sector. While achieving a profit in the private sector world is generally a good indicator of results, a nonprofit has to use achievement of results as their measuring stick. So profit is very quantitative. you can count money. But some of the changes within people are so esoteric that it's difficult to see the change, particularly when you're talking about with kids and attitudinal changes, you know, change in attitude, change in behavior can be a little easier, but change in self-esteem, you know, how do you know when somebody's self-esteem has changed from negative to positive? How do you measure that? And yet, if that's the result that you're going after, you have to find some way to be able to measure that so other people can see it and other people can understand it. And Drucker had this case study of a mental health treatment center that they were able to define specific results that enabled them to identify customer progress. And so they were not cured, but they were able to hold on to a job. They completed school or returned home from being institutionalized. They no longer blame demons, you know, which is my answer. They no longer blame demons in the closet and had reduced the number and length of psychiatric hospitalization. So when you look at those kinds of changes in their lives, they clearly defined results. They weren't cured, but boy, they did make a difference in the quality, in the improvement of the quality of their life. So that's some of the ways that you can look at it. Now, if you were talking about self-esteem, think about that case study with the hospital, and then think about a kid or an adult in one of your programs, and if you were mentoring or coaching them, and it could be an employee, it could be a staff person that you supervise as well. And the goal was to increase their level of self-esteem. What would be some of the things you might look for to see that you could count as a result? Okay, you all are managers, so, you know, and you manage as well, you got those kids you're managing. for your pre-apprenticeship. Okay, so look at it from that perspective. You've got a staff person that has low self-esteem, and you're coaching and you're mentoring them, okay? So, or volunteer you're working with low self-esteem. What things would you be looking for to see that their self-esteem is improving?
Their communication skills.
Okay, okay,
They are being proactive in terms of taking the lead in some of the
okay,
projects.
okay, good, okay.
That's pretty much, I guess, what I can think of right now.
The facial expressions, the frequency in which they smile, the
Okay,
frequency in which
okay.
they want to, through their body language, be engaged in an activity.
Okay, okay, very good, very good. Another one that might go along, that's an indicator, and we'll talk about, you know, proxy things, would be a reduction in absenteeism. Because a lot of times, you know, when you're ill is not, you're physically ill, you need mental health days from the job. And sometimes you just can't get up. It may be depression, it may be fear at the workplace, it could be a lot of different things, but you just don't show up to work. Or you show up to work and you don't show up. You know what I mean? Is you're not there. And so reduction in that may be an indication that their self-esteem, because people will feel better about themselves, feel good about coming to work and doing the job and engaging in it. Okay. So what we don't want to do is, we don't have profit, because we're not a profit-making organization, to use as a measure, but we need to be clear about what we are going to use. And that's one of the things that you as managers need to look at in your programs. You know, it's about changing. That when we meet with you next week, on your national performance indicators, that you are looking at every category to see where you're making a change in someone's life. And can we count that as a result, as an achievement, you know, that's coming from your direct intervention in this person's life or in the community. And just like we identified that there are two kinds of assessment data, we can identify results as qualitative and that are quantitative. Again, we're back to, you know, how do we look at the results? Are they numbers or are they words? Qualitative results are more intangible. That's where you start getting into your area of I feel, I think, I meant, it's more that I center that you can't quite put a number on. It's harder to measure, but it's still very important. You really need to have that, because that's part of telling you what's motivating that person. What is that customer value? Stuff like improved self-esteem, empowerment, or motivation can be considered qualitative. And improved quality of life is sometimes included as an outcome for some programs. As a matter of fact, when you look through the Roma goals and you look through the national performance of indicators, there are several indicators that are improved quality of life. And you have to step back and think, well, what does that mean? You know, I think inside toilets are improved quality of life, but, you know, but on the grander scale of life-changing things, you have to be very specific about how you're going to measure it. And it's got to be tied to what the customer values. You know, it just can't be an increase in reading scores. you know, and we'll talk a little bit more about the different types of results. And the quantitative results are the counts of individuals who met an outcome that is defined by a standard. That's very important to consider because you're going to be doing projections, and you're going to be doing projections of the number of people you've enrolled, and then the number of people who actually met that outcome during that reporting period. And fortunately, we are not doing monthly and quarterly reporting on MPIs anymore. It's only midterm and annual, so you only do it twice a year. But for the 6 months is, you know, if you projected for the whole year that you're gonna have 100 people enroll, and 50% of them are going to meet that outcome, every time you're reporting is measuring how closer to 100% of achievement of goal are you getting. You know, how close are you getting to those 50 people? You know, and maybe you turned out, in order to get the 50 people, you had to enroll even more people and stuff. And so it keeps looking at the number. It's a number game when you're measuring results that way. Unfortunately, the state doesn't look for the qualitative. They're all about that, because the feds don't look for the qualitative. They are all about the numbers. And it's very important to know that, because what they're not getting and what they're not listening to are the stories behind the numbers, which is why they keep thinking that CSBG is not a viable program. Because how we count where our successes are is not getting communicated in an appropriate way to Washington, so they don't see the impact of the numbers back home in the local state, because we don't report them. You know, is we don't report them. We'll look at, let's take, and I'm rabbit trailing here for a sec. Let's take the youth programs. We may only track one MPI that they got a job and retained it for 90 days. But there are plenty of other MPIs that show successes in other area of this one kid. This one kid is more than just one MPI. They may be 5 or 6 or 7 other MPIs on the list. So, you know, it's very important that we tell our story well in the way that this particular funder is reading it. And remember, Congress and the Senate are the ones who are reading this information. And if we're not documenting our successes, they'll give the money to somebody else. There are plenty of other people who want our money, plenty. Plenty that we're still at. We haven't resolved the issue of the White House wanting to do a 50% budget cut on CSPG. We are not behind that. You know, that danger, that threat is still out there. And the only way that they're going to see it differently is to see our hand out in family, community, and agency, and changing results that whittles down poverty in this country. So that's my soapbox.
Okay.
So the final concept in this question is that of concentrating resources for success. And we want to be mindful of abandoning or strengthening services based on the quality of results being produced. So on page 35, have you guys been at any agency or within this own agency made an assessment that the results aren't worth continuing the program?
We had an additional training that we used to offer for mediation services called conflict resolution specialist training.
Yes.
And where the goal was to be able to recruit community members that wanted to be the movers and the shakers in their community, give them the conflict resolution skills, and then be able to track their successes in regards to what changes they were making in their own community or neighborhood. And unfortunately, the individuals who were taking advantage of it weren't necessarily using it for the improvement of their communities. They were using it for the improvement of themselves or a requirement from work. And so we had to tailor it to our workshops and focus more on that to be able to provide that service more grassroots.
Okay, that's an excellent example. An excellent example. I know we had another program that was called BURD, B-U-R-D, Building Ubiquitous.
Universal.
Mrs. Carson called it ubiquitous. Anyway, it was a disaster preparedness training where we were almost like training the trainer. We would go out and train these agencies or these churches, and then they were supposed to train other agencies and churches and stuff like that. And so we don't do that anymore because I think what we were looking at, the results that we wanted to build was a very informed, trained community in the event of a natural or man-made disaster, and it wasn't happening. They were getting, tools and equipment, stuff that they could use and need through the workshop, but the circle of knowledge wasn't spreading the way that we had intended for it to spread. And when
But something positive came out of that.
oh yes, it's not just,
Office of Emergency Service started outreaching more in the communities to provide the community emergency response team, which they expanded to community centers, senior centers. So I think that we introduced the concept, but someone else took over.
And that's, and one of the things that we have to look at is that we first identify what's working and what's not working by analyzing the outcome data. Did we hit target? Did we meet goal when we were looking at the number of people or entities or whatever being changed or developed? And if something isn't producing the results or sufficiently, we have to justify whether we're going to continue to put resources into that, or whether we need to look at another, say, strategies, a whole nother different outcome, or whatever, because it's all about, facilitating things that are meeting our mission statement. And it isn't to say that the concept or whatever, or nothing good ever came out of it, did enough. It's like with the Earned Income Tax coalition, statewide coalition. CCAP Riverside developed that, and then it went up to CalNeva. And after that, we were involved in it, but now they don't even have the collaborative anymore. It's morphed in to something totally and completely different. Well, it probably morphed because of a need to change, maybe focus, maybe mission, maybe outcomes and stuff like that. But, if it's no longer addressing the needs that it was developed for, then you either need to abandon it or you need to strengthen it. You need to evaluate it and say, what additional resources can I put towards this to make it stronger, or do we need to sunset this? It was good in its, youth and infancy or whatever, and now it needs to go into retirement, and serve as an example for other programs.
Like, a few years back, they had the Solar for All California plan. And, you know, we bought into it, that, you know, it fit our mission as to what, you know, what we want to do for weatherization. When you got into the contract, and you could only weatherize brand-new apartment buildings from, you know, that were built by a certain builder, you know, the reality of it came to pass, and you know, it's time to step away from
Is
it.
that what happened to that?
Yeah.
I was wondering, we stopped hearing about it.
Yeah, because there wasn't anything in the county that met those criteria,
Wow.
and probably wasn't anything in the state that met it.
Yeah, yeah. Sometimes we get misdirected. It could be a board member that has a pet cause that they want to champion. It could be a staff member that has a pet cause that they want to champion. It could be money luring us down the yellow brick road, you know. You get to the wizard and find out you got a whole lot of work to do and get very little in return for it. There's
Trade.
Yeah, oh, give me chills. Anyway, so, and there are some really, really good things that come out of it, and some really challenging things that make you sit back and think, is this the best way to do it? So if we could turn to page 35, and if someone would read the third paragraph for me, that starts with "to believe."
To believe that whatever we do is a moral cause and should be pursued whether there is success or not is a perennial temptation for nonprofit executives, and even more for their boards. Everything is a good cause, but we cannot afford to continue where we seem unable to further the mission.
Okay, thank you. And someone read the next two paragraphs, the bolded and then need alone.
Do we produce results that are sufficiently outstanding for us to justify putting our resources in this area? Need alone does not justify continuing, nor does tradition. People in any organization are attached to the obsolete. The things that should have worked but did not. The things that were once productive and no longer are.
And you have to continually ask, what does the agency want to achieve? And the biggest thing that I always promote, if it's not in your mission statement, why are you doing it? If you can't directly point that back to your mission statement, one or the other has to change, the program or the mission statement. And the program is about addressing a need. So can you peel that back to the deeper level of what need is being addressed? Don't look at the strategy or the outcome as being the need. That's kind of like the, the means justify the end. You need to have something that affects that need. And that's the driving force. And so if you turn to page 36, sometimes we use the word results and sometimes outcomes, but what we're talking about is the benefit that comes from the activity that we produce as an agency. And that change happens to our customers, but we use the terms interchangeably, results and outcome. But when you hear that, when you hear outcome is about change. It is the results. The other stuff, using an accountant cliche, is bean counting. And all is how many people, how many people attended a workshop. But the purpose of attending the workshop was to build the skills. So you have two different things. People attended the workshop. We call that an output. We'll talk about that in a few minutes. Or people changed, increased their knowledge level. That's a result. That's an outcome. Okay. So you want to be mindful of that. If people come and get their tax return, you get 4,000, 5,000 this year. The output would be the number of returns you produce, but what would be an outcome from them doing that?
Opening a bank account or savings bonds.
Okay, so now that's an output, they open something, what's the benefit to them? What's the change to them by doing that?
Creating an asset.
Yes, increasing their assets. Yeah, they got more money to spend. And you helped them. You made that possible, you and Uncle Sam.
You're the conduit.
Okay.
Middleman.
Okay, so in addition to the different levels of outcomes, where then the levels are again family, community, and agency, there are different types of outcomes. And they all involve incremental change, but different kinds of change. On page 36, we have the types of outcomes, and we have 3 different types of change. So if I could get one person to do overtime, one person to do in status, and one person in direction. And think a little bit about what you do at the agency and see if you can come up with maybe an example. Oh boy, I really reduced my volunteer pool with that.
Change over time. Consider the difference in time frames in different situations. Short term for a client in need of a shelter may be this afternoon, while short term for someone obtaining basic job skills training may be 6 months. You will identify the change to be observed in a time frame that matches the situation. This may be characterized as short term, intermediate term, or long term. For the mediation services that we provide, we do community mediation cases, and where they call and want the services based on a neighbor-to-neighbor conflict, family conflict, conflict in regards to money borrowing. And so in regards to time, definitely a neighbor who's about to go to war with his other neighbor would have a little bit more urgency in regards to a friend who is trying to get a hold of their friend who borrowed $500 6 months ago, and they've been there's lack of communication, and so that would take second priority. So that's how we categorize those.
Okay, okay. And so now what about your peer mediators as an example?
Yeah.
Like a short-term goal would be,
The short-term goal for peer mediation training would be to actually coordinate when and where, how the training is going to take place. So for example, if we're scheduling at a high school, it's going to be a 10-hour training, and that can easily be scheduled in 2 days. And so depending on the urgency or the need of the school in terms of providing training for their students, that can be coordinated within the month from when they call us.
okay. So now, okay. Let me give an example of a result on, say, an individual. That's a good example of result for, like, say, a community. So working with the community, you can get something scheduled within a certain period of time. Let's talk about for families, like you've got a youth that's doing the peer mediation training, and maybe this youth has very poor communication skills. So within the first 30 days, his communication skills improve because he, as an output, completed one of the workshop series. Okay, so that's short term. Maybe intermediate change may be in 90 days, 3 months out. He is able to get 50% of the cases he hears resolved. So he's improving his skills, his mediation skills. Then say in a year's time, or by the end of the school year, he is actually coaching and mentoring. He has developed his skills to the point where he can be a coach or a mentor to other peer mediators. So that's another increase in the level of skills that he has, where here he had no skills, here he has supervisory type of skills. So that's the increase of change of his basic mediation skills over a period of time. For the community, it may be the number of workshops that are made available. And so within 30 days, you can get, so many schools interested, involved, and improve their curriculum. And then your intermediate, and then your long-term. And then for agency, it could be that you increase the resources, now that you got a 40% cut coming from DERPA, that you need additional resources. So the first 30 days may be to deal with the 40% cut. That happened, but I mean, and let's say quarterly, the first quarter, you deal with the 40% cut. And by the second quarter, you're dealing with sustaining from other resources. And from the end of the fourth quarter, you've established several other funding streams that now support this program, so that you're not solely dependent upon DERPA, that if any one of those pull out, you're not stranded, you're not left high and dry. So do you guys see how, like, over time, where we're looking at the results that are changing, either in the individual, and that's usually skill or behavior or attitude. In community is generally infrastructure, resource, opportunities, like the number of after-school slots, the number of VITA sites, the number of media partners, the number of general partners or commissioners, having a full slate of commissioners, and the number of audits that we pass, and stuff like that. You can all take those to like bigger pictures, and then the agency would be, what do we need in order to provide services for the community? So money's always one thing, but maybe we need a certain certification. Maybe we need all of our managers CCAP. Maybe we need, I don't know, a vending machine, that has, snacks and soda. Okay, I'm looking for that. Anyway, so you can, think about it on a picture like that, okay? So we're going to look at some examples of family agency and community outcomes. So if you take a look at family outcomes on 37, the numbering doesn't make sense. It's kind of interesting that 1 is 6 of there are 6 Roma goals. 2 of them are agency, 2 of them are community, and 2 of them are family. And you will look and see that goal number 1 and goal number 6 are family.
Why did they do that? Why did they do that, Debra?
I think, I don't know the history of that, but logic tells me they probably added a goal at the end and realized it was a family goal.
I
And
see.
instead of changing the numbers of the other one, they just mixed them. Because you'll see that 4 and 5 are agency goals.
Right.
And then 2 or 3 are community goals, okay? So for family outcomes, they kind of try to look at it as employment, but in employment, self-sufficiency goes beyond employment. Having a job doesn't make you self-sufficient. We got too many working poor people to show that. If you look at goal 6 at the bottom of page 37, it really looks at specific vulnerable populations such as seniors and youth. And this is targeted because these are our most vulnerable. And you'll see added into it when you see the MPIs that you've got the disabled. included in this group as well. And basically, we're looking at families and seniors and kids who don't have the basic skills or support systems. One of the things they have in here that we report is the number of people who, on an emergency basis, whose life were improved because they had their utilities paid, or their houses weatherized, you know, or they had Project Lead after school care, so they could go to work, you know, and have some place, a safe environment to leave their kids. So when you're looking through, you know, stuff like that, look at how does your service helps become a life support to a family, you know, that may be in need. And these are the examples of the need, how we make changes, the outcomes in these different areas, okay? So we are trying to move people towards self-sufficiency and stability when we look at the two family goals. I think when you look at six is primarily stability, and 1 is towards self-sufficiency. So 1, you're going to find employment, you're going to find the match savings incentives, you're going to find the credits, you're going to find income tax, earned income tax, all those different things that, you know, might be helping. And the other one is stability, support that keeps you working, okay? So if you turn to page 38, which is goal 4, goal 5. Goal 4 is about forming partnerships, and it's about being intentional about these partnerships. It isn't, you know, let's be on every coalition, let's be on every board, let's get our word out and communicate with everyone. It's about building relationships that build resources for your programs. It's very intentional. It's just, you have to evaluate the result of that partnership. You know, we say that we have over 500 plus partners, but are they like letterhead boards? And do you guys know what letterhead boards are? You know, it's just your name's on the letterhead and that's all you do. you know, it's you let them use your name. It's the same way with partners. Are they letterhead partners, or do they have produce tangible results in your relationship and partnership with them? And it should be a win-win situation for all 3 involved. So we got the partner out in community, we got community action, and who's the third person?
Customer.
The customer. You know, all 3 people should be winning from that partnership. And so example 5 is how we improve the agency. So this is where we're looking at staff development, we're looking at training our board. Is at the bottom of 38. Our CCAPs, this is a new thing that they've started asking is on the CCAP. How many CCAPs do we have? Okay, so now if you look at page 39 and look at community outcomes, they are not individual outcomes extrapolated into larger groups of people. It's not the number of individual homes weatherized, it's rather improved housing stock through weatherization. So that's how it becomes community, is how does it increase the value of the community, not how does it impact the individual. We'll go to VITA. So how would EITC be a community outcome?
$1 invested into each community produces $1.80 in the local economy.
Yes, perfect. It's bringing money into the community, and that is spendable money. And hopefully people spend within their own community.
60% do.
But they're spending in somebody's community.
Yeah.
You know, so, you know, somebody's getting that money, yeah.
But you said hopefully it's not Vegas.
Yeah.
You never know,
Or
it could come
Samoa.
back.
They
Yeah.
have, you know, they have an international.
That's another national.
The international base of support and all. So, okay. And so now, number 3 is about the involvement of the individual in community. So it's like when we have our low-income reps on our commission. It's like when we have them on the energy task force. It's like when we have them go and testify before the Board of Supervisors about the community action plan. We've had some low-income families that have served on other community boards like Fair Housing Board. We had someone serve there. When they volunteer, you know, and give up their time and their low income and they're volunteering in the community. So this is about how the individuals, through their activities, make a change in community. So when you look at page 40, and basically there's, again, those 3 levels that you want to be mindful of. You want to be mindful of family, agency, and community. And the nutshell of it is family is changing an individual, a family, as person, is individual centered. Agency shows the process of collaboration and partnership that a community action agency uses to create. Oh, I'm sorry, I'm doing this is exercise wrong. Okay. So I'm going to ask you for examples. For family, look at the example for employment. Like how we did, do you guys remember what we did with education when we were looking at needs and we went family, agency, and community, and what the needs would be in those different levels along the line of education? Well, this one is about employment. And we're looking at what would be an outcome for a family on the employment level, what would be an outcome for employment on an agency level, and what would be an outcome for employment on a community level. Okay. So anyone, what are some of the outcomes that a family, an individual person could experience from employment?
Stability, asset building.
One, yeah, and that comes from doing what with employment? How do you get to stability and asset building using employment? Real simple. If you're unemployed, you become employed.
And remain employed.
And remain employed, yeah. Man, oh wow, it increases in salary. Yeah, oh yeah. Okay, get a better job, yeah. You get, okay, so agency for employment. What are some of the things that the outcomes for agency? And think about what we do as programs and services. Do we have resources for employment as an agency?
We do, we help to improve the employees' abilities to be better employed through providing permanent positions or even promotional opportunities outside of our agency.
Yes.
Yes, we transitioned some of our program participants, whether they come in through other agencies within the county to support us as participants, like for the WEX or whatever, doing surveys, and then we eventually employ them.
Okay,
So those are a couple ways we do that.
okay, okay, and that benefits our own employees. What about customers? What do we do for customers as resources? Okay, we got 2 programs that do,
Oh, man.
the
That-
vet training program and pre-apprenticeship. So we have job development services as an agency and resources. We have a really wonderful resource for human resources department for the county that help internal staff, and then for the individuals outside of it, we have some employment opportunity services that we do. Okay, and so community, what about employment? What would be an outcome? What happens when a new store comes to town, or a new factory comes to town?
They send a lead of the information and then we stick it up.
No, the job opportunities. Yeah, the job opportunities come to play. The unemployment rate decreases, stuff. Okay, so to make this short, because we're getting close to running out of time. Think of one outcome for your program. And administration, think about administratively, one outcome that you could produce or would like to produce for either try and do all 3, family, agency, and community, but if you can only get one, that's fine. And then we're going to put it up on the sheet. Yeah, you can put that one up. And you want to identify, if you could just, like in parentheses, put F for family, A for agency, and C for community. That might stop by itself. Did you take the back one off? Thank you. Anybody got one yet? Want me to make some up for you?
Say, increase or expand our current services.
Okay, for your program, so be a little more specific. Which program are you talking about?
Well, this, let's say pre-apprentice.
Okay, and,
So more outcomes would be to increase participation of youth in pre-apprentice.
okay, so would it be fair to say increase the number of youth?
Yes.
Okay, in pre-apprenticeship. Okay, and what does that sound like to you guys? An agency or a community or a family? What's getting changed?
Well, first is family. That's my,
Okay, but the way this read is increase the number of youth that are in that. Okay, so we haven't done anything to the kids yet. So.
So is it agency?
Community. We're increasing the number of available options, available opportunities for you. Now, if we said increase the earnings or employ, increase the employment status of high school youth. Now we're impacting, we're changing the kid. When we do something to the actual customer, it's family. When we open up an opportunity in the community for them to come to, is a community. When we increase our resources to be able to provide the services, then it's an agency, okay? So let's go to Tamara.
On agency employment, the fact that many of our employees are involved in getting their masters and other things, by improving the educational opportunities and encouraging staff to improve or further their careers, we are increasing the agency employability of of the staff.
So, okay, so if you want to narrow that down to, what's your central thing? Increasing the employment, education?
Not increasing the education, but increasing the number of staff that take advantage of that, or? So you would.
Okay, well, think about it. It could be either one, but think about it. What do you want to change? Do you want to change the number of opportunities the agency provides or the county provides? Or do you want to change the education level of staff?
Change the educational level of staff, because that will enable them to pursue the opportunities that the county provides.
So increase educational level of staff.
Right.
Very simple. It's very, and that would be
Well,
that's a family.
Oh, that's a family?
Wouldn't you think? Because it's a person that you're changing.
Of staff, okay.
Yeah. And now, how would you make it an agency?
Well, if we had more trainings for all the agency members regarding opportunities for educational advancement.
Increase educational opportunities for staff would be community, agency, sorry, agency. And then for community, how would you write that? So what's the benefit of having a well-educated workforce?
A lot.
Innovation, with the ideas,
Get better jobs, better paying jobs.
economy improves.
Yeah, there's a lot of benefit that comes from a well-educated workforce. And so what you would do is that you would connect this back to the need, from your need assessment. What is, if, and this may be a way that you could connect it all, if people don't have jobs because there are limited skilled labor jobs within the community, and the community is having trouble bringing in employers with skilled labor slots because the community can't support with employees, well, the benefit to the community is to have a well-trained, well-skilled labor force to then attract those employers that have those higher paying jobs and all. And so it's a leveraging of community economic development, because you're bringing in employers and you're bringing in job slots, because you're educating your local workforce to be able to do those jobs. So the family here benefits because they're increasing their employability by increasing their economics, their educational skills, and they're increasing their assets because they become employed and they are earning spendable income. So that's how you kind of get those two matching together. And back on the needs assessment, I think one of them was employment. And there are two forks to that. You gotta have jobs, and you gotta have people who can do the jobs, you know, and so, okay, thank you, very good examples. So, Olga.
Increase current network of employment possibilities
Okay.
for individuals taking the mediation training.
Okay, okay. And so that one is a,
Well, it's for the individual, so it'd be for family.
okay. It sounds more community to me.
Okay.
Can you read it again?
Yes, increase current network of employment possibilities for mediators who are trained in mediation.
Okay, so that's community because it's opportunities. What is it that you want to change about the, what do you want to change about the mediators?
I want to increase their employment possibilities based on the fact that they took the
Okay.
training.
But the thing for them individually, you want them to be employed
Mhm,
as mediators.
mhm.
Okay. The opportunities come from the community for them to be employed, but the change that you want to see in them is to go from not working as a mediator to working as a mediator?
Mhm.
Okay, okay. So increase employment of volunteer mediators? Is that
Yes.
closer to what you, okay, what you want? And then the community, and then you have a community one, which would be the way to increase employment is to increase the opportunities.
Mhm.
And the opportunities come from the community.
Okay.
But the status you want to change with the mediator is that they're unemployed to employed. Okay. Such a serious look.
Not sure if I'm totally understanding, but
Okay.
I'm thinking along the lines of educating program managers more about their budgets so they can maximize their programs and grow their
Okay,
programs.
okay, okay.
Mm.
Would it be fair to say that
Yes,
it's a
yes.
increasing budgeting skills of program managers? Okay, that is,
Agency and community.
Agency and families?
okay, it's family, it's family. How would it be agency?
Because you are empowering your staff to understand more about their budgets.
Okay, well, that's one thing, that could possibly be one. But what would happen to our agency if every manager was empowered to manage their budget? Besides Claudia could go on vacation once a year. What would happen to our agency?
It improved.
Yeah, it would be, improve the fiscal accountability of the agency. Is what you would be doing by ensuring that every program manager had sufficient budgeting skills to be accountable to their budget. So it's that overall that fiscal accountability and responsibility. It could be that one of your results would be that you would have 0 findings in all audits, because as a result of this skill building with your program manager. So they have the knowledge, and the result of their knowledge is going to change something about the agency. What would that change be? You know, in the big bright future, you know, we have, you know, glowing audits, we get awards, you know, we'd be going out and teaching other people, you know, how to do their budgets. You know, we'd be, you know, the shining example across the national network. Okay, let's do it, 2015, we can do it. Okay, Kareem. Thank you, Claudia.
I did increasing partnerships with local community, faith-based, and government agencies to increase outreach, as well as expansion of services or awareness.
Is that all in one outcome?
Right.
Oh, okay, so
There's three.
so break out one single element there, you,
Increase partnerships with faith-based agencies to increase outreach.
okay, so
Community.
family, community, or agency?
That's community and agency.
Yes, okay, but it's primarily.
Community,
Okay, who is it benefiting the most?
the community.
Okay. Read it one more time.
Increase partnerships with faith-based agencies to further outreach.
Not agency?
How about, okay, what you're trying to, what's the end result? When we do the partnership and they do outreach, what's the end result?
To expand awareness or services.
Okay, educate the
Yeah.
community?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so increase partnership, faith-based
Mm-hmm.
partnerships to educate community?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. That gets you at your result, because the outreach is about changing a level, that would be agency and community, you're absolutely right. Am I out of time again? Oh, okay. Okay, but I am out of time, but I'm not going to stop before I get to Richard.
Oh, yes, I'm complete. Thank you.
Okay.
I passed it.
Well, for public information, I have in family, I have increased awareness of agency programs to low-income families.
Okay,
Okay? And for agency, expand outreach through new activities, for example, social media, email marketing.
okay,
And for community, increase awareness of the agency to community and other county departments so that we are the first thing that comes to mind when poverty is mentioned.
okay.
What are the three again? Increase awareness of program.
To low-income families, as in family. Okay. Expand outreach through new activities for agency and community to increase awareness of agency to community and other county departments so that we are the first thing people think of poverty.
Very good exercise, you guys. I mean, you guys are, you're getting it, you know. Sometimes it can be very complex, but what you have to ask is who benefits? What are the results, you know? Who is, when you think about like the 5 whys, 5 Ws, who, what, when, where, and a H, how. You know, it's looking at who is the who. Sound like who girl. Yeah, really. I'm gonna start reciting, what's his name,
Dr. Seuss?
Dr.
Should we bring the
Seuss
things
poetry,
in?
yeah. So it's time to quit. I'm hungry and my brain is dead. So, who is the who of your outcome? Who is being impacted by the change? So when you think of family and individual, is it a family or individual that's going to change because of the outcome that you have? Is it the community that is going to change because of the outcome? Or is it the agency that is going to change? And mostly like when the agency changes, it gives an increase in resources. It gives an increase in business products or business practice. It is something that is either physical, like cash, or asset that is coming, resources that's coming into the agency that's making an impact on your ability to deliver service, or is an increase in skill and knowledge that makes it possible to deliver services. For community is what benefits the community, what can everybody enjoy or have more access to if the community changed in a certain way. So when you talk about like the number of VITA sites, the number of schools that participate in Project Lead, the number of places that you go for the school, the peer mentoring, or the courts, or for that matter, the number of agency that has an opportunity to bid for services as subcontractors for our agency through the delegate agency and weatherization programs. Those are all things that benefit the community because the community is taking something out of that and is increasing, is bettering, is improving, is, you know, or it's reducing. It doesn't necessarily have to be in a positive way. We could be reducing the number of foster kids that are adjudicated because we employed them and gave them a job, so they're not going to jail, they're not prone to do, you know, vandalism or stuff like that. So when you look at the direction of change, the levels of change, it was over time, over direction, or it was negative, there was no change. You know, those all fit into your outcomes. We're gonna stop for today, we're not done with 3. I need to find a way to improve on my delivery to keep within the